The number of people crossing the U.S. border fell this weekend. A pandemic-era border rule, which let the U.S. turn asylum seekers away, expired last week. There was a record surge of crossings at the U.S. Mexico border leading up to that change. There were 4,200 crossings on Saturday. Government took data which showed down from more than 10,000 a day earlier last week. North Carolina's governor vetoed an abortion ban on Saturday. The bill passed by the state legislature this month would ban nearly all abortions after 12 weeks of pregnancy. It was blocked by Democratic Governor Ray Cooper. Republicans hold supermajorities in both chambers of the legislature and could override the veto. But Democrats are trying very hard to pull some Republicans onto their side. States are sending people to college for free to fight a teacher shortage. Apprenticeships allow trainees to make more money while they learn the craft and earn their credentials. In the past 17 months, programs have been certified in 16 states. The teacher shortage is caused by a combination of low pay, exhaustion, and a feeling of being increasingly under attack. Top advisors to President Biden are planning a 2024 battleground strategy that fully invests in North Carolina while mounting an early challenge in the increasingly Republican domain of Florida, home to two of his top rivals. In several capitals across red America, gun control advocates say they are seeing faint, if sometimes fleeting, fissures in what has long been staunch Republican opposition to any whiff of firearms restriction. The small shifts have come amid a gruesome torrent of mass killings in red states, including shootings at a school in Tennessee, a bank in Kentucky, a home outside Houston, and earlier this month, a suburban Dallas outlet mall where 8 were killed. Well, while there was ongoing efforts to make it more difficult to vote in many Republican-controlled states, a research group found there has also been a quiet counter-movement to expand access to voting across the country. A new report by a nonpartisan group that focuses on analysis that advances free and fair elections found that nearly a third of legislation passed in state houses earlier this year actually make it easier to vote through policies such as expanding early and mail voting opportunities, restoring felon voting rights, and providing more time to voters for fixing errors on ballots, among other things. Well, heading into an expected meeting between President Joe Biden and congressional leaders this week, Republican lawmakers say an agreement on spending caps is important in securing their support to avert a dangerous debt default. The House passed debt ceiling bill would slash federal spending to fiscal year 2022 levels, requiring appropriators charged with allocating government funding to cut, get this, $131 billion compared with what Congress is currently spending. Meetings that target cutting defense funding would require a 17% cut to, well, let me start over. Not cutting defense funding would require a steep 17% cut to non-defense discretionary spending. This is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. In this hour, I am joined by two of my favorite, and I must say, two brilliant contributors, Los Angeles Times reporter Gustavo Arellano and Monique Pressley, a legal commentator and host of the podcast Make It Make Sense with Monique Pressley. They are both here to help us make sense of today's trending news. And in my second hour, I go one-on-one with Danielle Monet Truitt. She is the star of Law and Order, Organized Crime, and she's out with a one-woman play called Three Black Girl Blues. I sit down and talk with Danielle about her role on the uber-popular Dick Wolf series, Law and Order, also what prompted her to write and to perform Three Black Girl Blues. But before I bring on my guest, here's what I'm thinking about in real time. I don't know if you saw this, but now there is this focus by some companies to change diversity, equity, and inclusion training to now call it diversity and belonging. Now you got to add DEI, you got to add the B to DEI. So it's diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, or diversity, equity, and belonging. This question of belonging has become the latest focus in this kind of evolving world of corporate diversity inclusion programs. After George Floyd's murder in 2020, we saw an explosion in these programs. Corporations were turning their attention to addressing systemic racism and power imbalances, things that they noted had kept boardrooms white and employees of color feeling excluded from office work, office environments. Now we are 3 years post the murder of George Floyd, and lots of companies are rethinking their approach to diversity and equity. Some are cutting back altogether. They've gotten rid of their diversity programs. Some have scaled back substantially, and others are looking at renaming their departments to include the word belonging. Some say it is the age of DEIB. Now, critics, and I think I'm one of these critics, I need to learn a lot more about this belonging, but I worry that this is all about making white people feel comfortable rather than addressing systemic inequality, or that it simply comes down to companies, prioritizing getting along, making everybody get along, making folks feel like they belong rather than addressing necessary changes. Belonging is a way to help people who aren't marginalized, and that's these white men, mostly, who are running a lot of these companies, feel like they're a part of the conversation. Now, a professor at the Wharton School of Business who studies diversity and inclusion, she too is worried that we are creating these new terms as a way to manage resistance, the resistance that we saw to a lot of the diversity and equity programs that were put in place after George Floyd's murder. I spent a lot of time after George Floyd's murder talking to diversity and equity inclusion specialists about what they were doing and how enthusiastically they were being embraced right after his murder, and how slowly over time, some of those same companies that brought them on started to eliminate them, get rid of their contracts. And those that didn't eliminate them started to change their focus. I had one diversity specialist tell me that one company asked her, could she not use the word white because it made the white people in the room feel uncomfortable? Really? That's a true story. And my producer is here with the receipts to tell you. And others just talked about how senior level managers that used to show up at these trainings, all of a sudden they were absent. They stopped coming. They started to send their low level employees. The whole shift in focus was away from really addressing systemic racism, really addressing the lack of people of color at the top of some of these companies, in the C-suites, and definitely in the boardrooms. And now there's something called belonging. I don't know, I'm thinking about Michelle Obama's book. Maybe that's what prompted this change. But in any event, I hope that efforts to make people feel comfortable is not just a way for the white men predominantly who are in control in a lot of these big companies to stop talking about systemic racism, to stop working on making these workplaces more inclusive, to stop talking about ways to ensure that people of color and women are given a fair opportunity to rise to the top of organizations, that this isn't just another way. And we know America's good about this. Whenever we get into tough conversations about race, Americans and America would rather talk about anything other than systemic racism. And I hope this whole conversation around belonging and now DEIB is not just another effort to avoid the elephant in the middle of the room. Folks, racism is not going away. We can call it belonging, we can call it inclusion, we can call it whatever, but at the end of the day, we have a problem. And the problem is we do not have the opportunities for women and people of color in this country to do as well in most environments as white folks, particularly white men. So let's stay focused and let's get something done in the same spirit that we were working after George Floyd's murder, so that his death, his life, would not have been in vain. That's what I'm thinking about in real time. When we come forward, more of today's trending news with my expert contributors right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're not not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580.
Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
I'm young, gifted, and black. At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Your black. Your black.
All right, I am back today. I am joined by contributors, Los Angeles Times reporter Gustavo Arellano and Monique Pressley. Thank you both for joining me today. I know we hadn't necessarily planned to talk about this, but just in the moments since we started the show, there's a new report out. The special counsel, Gustavo John Durman, has issued his long-awaited report. The report sharply criticizes the FBI for investigating the 2016 Trump campaign. He says it's based on raw, unanalyzed, and uncorroborated intelligence. Some are saying this conclusion is going to fuel rather than end a partisan debate about the politicizing of the Justice Department and the FBI. But I think the most important thing about this report to me is it doesn't really tell us a whole lot more than what we knew, and it's not recommending any charges. Have you had a chance to look at any of the press about this report, and what are you thinking about it?
No, I haven't seen it yet, but look, I'm sure it's going to be the same thing we've heard many, many times. We all know Trump is a charlatan. We all know he loves to dance on the edge of legality, and sometimes he has crossed that line, as evidenced by lawsuits and bankruptcy and all of this. He, of course, will claim a witch hunt, and his supporters will claim further the evidence of the deep state trying to take down Trump and it not happening. And his haters are just going to, it'll be interesting to see what the critics of say about this, because if a report is saying that the FBI is doing overreach, I mean, we have been living in a bizarre world where you have liberal applauding the FBI and applauding the sort of government investigations that historically very skeptical about. I still say that the best way to defeat Trump is let him be the fool that he is, but also don't give more oxygen to the dumpster fire that he is.
Yeah, Monique. So this report cost the taxpayers more than $6.5 million. And at one point, Donald Trump was saying Durham was going to uncover the crime of the century. He was going to uncover all of these horrible things. And there was going to be, lots of folks charged in the FBI and the Justice Department. And the report, not so much. So what do you make of this extensive investigation that's really not telling us much more than what we already knew?
You're on mute.
Yeah, I think we're getting your audio, hopefully.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great.
Thank you.
I haven't seen it yet, Areva. So you're giving me the breaking news that it's out. I don't want to commit the cardinal rule number 1 of communicating and talk what I don't know. At least my rule number 1 is talk what you know. So I look forward to seeing it. I'm not surprised by what you're saying about it, obviously. It's never the way he forecasts things to be because he projects what he wants things to be. But I would be interested to see whatever criticism was levied against the FBI and whether there's any merit to it.
Well, I'm trying to get both of you. Maybe Avi can send you a link to it. I'd love to get both of your opinions closer to the end of the show. But let me ask you something, Monique, about this DEIB. You do a lot of work around crisis management, and you've helped a lot of companies deal with issues. How are you feeling about this notion that belonging is the way that we should be thinking about diversity and inclusion, because that's going to be less off-putting, it's going to be more inclusive, it's going to make everybody feel a part? I'm kind of thinking about, when we started giving everybody a trophy, whether you won the game or not, we wanted every kid to go home with a trophy. But do you think this is the way to go? Because a lot of these companies have been backsliding big time on their efforts to even address diversity issues.
Well, I'm for whatever helps, Areva, but frankly, I think that the DEI space has been sliding for a long while, and that the flashes we saw, as you said in your open, the flashes that we did see are always around particular horrific events. It is no longer the case that as a mainstay, these companies are doing anything that they are not forced to do. There was a period of time where it was not in vogue to not be doing real hard work in the space and be able to brag about it. Nobody even has to do that anymore. Now it's kind of a matter of course. Oh, of course, you've got your DEI. Oh, of course, you've got your person in-house to say you have someone. But that the reason why so many people who used to do really great work there have transitioned to other things is because they concluded that the space was no longer addressing the real needs and making real changes. Now, will adding a B to it help? I'm all for good language. I'm all for getting the branding right on something, but I always thought, and still do, that it's the lack of comfort around this topic that is helpful. So yeah. I don't know. It's not a warm, fuzzy umbrella. The whole reason it exists is to educate around and correct for issues that are stark. In contrast, where people are not being treated fairly due to color, due to sex, etc. And I didn't think it was about belonging, but I could be wrong. I'm happy to be wrong.
What are you feeling about this, Gustavo? Like I said, I think I'm with the critics. It just feels like another way to avoid dealing with the real issues of equity in this country.
Yeah, look, when corporations start embracing something, you already know it has been deracinated from its radical concepts. And it's funny because they see a way to make money. They see, okay, we're going to have our DEI and now B boards. We're going to have a whole program that's going to get us closer to the market. All they care about is consumers and the market. But when it comes these tough talks. Oh no, they don't want that at all. I remember years ago, even before the whole idea of DEI was given those initials, I got asked to speak to it was like a business group down here in Orange County, California. And they wanted me to talk about sort of the hidden histories of Orange County. So I just let them have it for like half an hour, just talking about all the nasty racism of white supremacy in Orange County. And then at the end, a woman said, "Oh, you're really making us feel uncomfortable." I'm like, that point, isn't that why you invited me? Well, I never got the invitation again. I hope that that's what corporations need. It's like you want to make people feel uncomfortable. That said, of course, for the people within these corporations, the people of color, they do need to feel like they belong. They do need to feel respected. But you know how that happens? By getting more of us into those positions of leadership to change these corporate cultures instead of just paying lip service to a better corporate culture.
Yeah, no, I think how I read the article, the B, Gustavo, is not to make people of color feel like they belong. It's to make the people already in positions of power.
No, that's even worse. God.
I think it's to make them feel like they belong because they started complaining that they felt left out because there was all this focus on, DEI and, it's just America. That's all I can say. It's just America being America. And God forbid we really have a serious conversation about systemic racism and start to make some headway. And somebody at the top starts to say, well, what about us? We don't really feel good. Like the woman says, I don't really want to talk about the racism in Orange County. You're making me uncomfortable. And they say, okay, well, we got a solution to this. We won't get rid of all of our DEI. We'll add a B and then we'll focus and we'll make everybody feel good. Well, why does the person sitting in positions of power, they already feel damn good. They're making all the money. They have all the decision-making authority. Like, what are you uncomfortable about? So, okay, I'll get off my soapbox. Let's talk about Joe Biden, Monique. He's going in too. He says, I'm not giving up anything. North Carolina, Florida, here comes the Democrats. What do you think is going to be the best strategy for Joe Biden going into these ruby red states and trying to challenge Republicans?
Wait, did you say that there's going to be a good strategy?
Well, the Democratic strategy is not to avoid going into these red states like North Carolina, like Georgia, like Florida. He says he's competing across the board.
Yeah. And I don't think that an all-state strategy is wrong. The focus on North Carolina is obviously very right. I'm from Texas, so I will never give up on Texas. People don't remember that Texas was once blue, blue, blue. Deep in the heart of Texas was blue, and it's been red so long now that people forget that. So I think it's necessary. I just am concerned about the way that the money is distributed. That's what I should say. I am concerned about what that will mean for distribution of funds, because our folks, Black folks who won the last election, Georgians who ensured that we still have a democracy, should not be at all taken for granted. And whatever new decisions are made, it is important that the same messages that got us across the finish line last time are present and built upon, because I have a concern when I hear people saying, well, what are they doing for us? And there's a million things, but we don't seem to know it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So Gustavo, Monique says, look, I don't mind us having a 50-state strategy of going to every state in the country, including these red states. But what we can't do is pull money away from those grassroots organizations that are really targeting the base. Do you think Biden is stretching himself too thin, or we should focus on those states that we know we can win and make sure we turn out the vote, and then some of those swing states?
Yeah, there's going to be states like California. You don't even have to worry about it. New York. There's going to be states that are a little bit more blue, but more in competition. Say Colorado. It's like Biden won Colorado, even though then the battle states like and North Carolina. Well, Georgia was right down the line, but a state like Florida, I hate to say now, I think it's a lost cause. There's no reason. Spend some money, and you should definitely support the local candidates, but you cannot win if the grassroots are losing, if these local boards, local councils and all of that are not making it happen. So I mean it's hard though. It hard with that 50-state strategy. And I do think, though, that you have to start early. So, and I think we're talking about North Carolina. And so North Carolina, Biden lost it. Didn't lose it by much, but it's still the South. I also think there's just the realities of what the South is, where really it's just Georgia that could do blue, and it's barely blue. It's purple. The of it's deep red, even if some of the cities are blue. So you got to do the 8-year strategy instead of we barely passed it in 2020, so let's kind of stumble our way into it again.
Yeah, I guess even California and New York, we've got to invest in these states because we have House seats in California. We have House seats in New York. Obviously, Santos in New York. That's a very critical seat. And we have the potential, I think, to win back the Congress. So I hope the DNC doesn't sleep on or somehow, pull money out of even some of these blue states like California and New York, because there's seats that we can pick up during the next presidential election that could be very, very important to our, our control of Congress. And then there are going to be some really difficult Senate seats coming up as well. So the Democrats have a lot of work to do, not just at the presidential level. So we'll see how this 50-state strategy works. When we come forward after some news, we're going to talk about voting and this notion that there may be some silent things happening, some quiet things happening that really will make it easier rather than more difficult for people to vote. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search. We are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody.
That's right.
Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on?
Free enterprise, you dig?
KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
King Kong ain't got on me.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
Tell me I'm the boy that girl.
I'm young, gifted, and black. At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon luncheon honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Connection established. Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Your black. Your black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader. Follow 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 the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar, shot with a rest bar, shot with a rest bar.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
The bounce is back.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head. Yeah.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search. We are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody.
That's right.
Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on?
Free enterprise, you dig?
KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
King Kong ain't got on me.
We are back, and I'm joined in this hour by two brilliant contributors, LA Times reporter Gustavo Arellano and Monique Pressley, a legal commentator and host of the podcast Make It Make Sense with Monique Pressley. All right, Gustavo, let's talk about the debt ceiling. We're going to talk about in this segment voting rights and guns, but I want to talk about this debt ceiling. I don't know. I'm not feeling warm and fuzzy that Biden and these Republican lawmakers are going to reach a deal. The Republicans want to cut a huge chunk out of the budget. Of course, they don't want to touch defense spending. They want to cut this non-defense discretionary spending, and to balance this or to reach the agreement, if they don't cut defense spending, they're talking about a 17%. That's a whopping cut in non-discretionary or in discretionary spending. What do you think is going to happen?
I'm all for less government spending. I'm not for less government spending when it's only on certain sectors of the, especially the sectors that are supposed to help folks out. Defense spending, we have all known how bloated it's been for decades. I mean, Dwight Eisenhower, I like Ike, warned against the military-industrial complex when he left. So this has been going on a long time. This is, though, a conversation that I can't even remember how many times I've heard. I seriously hope that the Republicans are not going to take the poison pill and make us, the American government, basically go into default. So I have faith and hope, even with this batch of Republicans, that they're strike a last-minute deal. Sadly, Biden's going to have to give something. But I hope then that Biden can turn it into like, hey, look, I was willing to compromise. But that's the thing, compromise. It is not a defeat. Democracy is about compromise. Democracy is about finding a common ground. But time's ticking. I think they have, 2 weeks to go? Very soon.
I don't know, Gustavo, about this compromise. Democrats are really upset with Obama because he was in a similar position. He made some cuts to some major programs. And this defense spending, let's be clear, Monique, defense spending is literally giving major multi-billion-dollar contracts to major corporations, mostly run again by white men. So there's no cutting in defense spending because they have big lobbyists that lobby lawmakers to make sure that that spending stays intact. And then, they frighten us like, oh my God, if we cut defense spending, somehow we're going to be less safe as a country. But when I hear the word defense spending, I just think about those billions and billions of dollars that go to those contractors, federal contractors, and very little of that money makes its way into the hands of, minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, disadvantaged business owners. So I think we need to be honest about what defense spending really is in this country.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And actually, I think that this merges right back to what we were last discussing, which is having people of power who look like us, who look like and reflect those in marginalized communities so that that can change. Because to me, Areva, if all of that money is going to be going out anyway, I want for Black and brown communities, I want for women-owned businesses to be getting a part of it. And that is, frankly, one of the reasons why in my neck of the woods, Prince George's County, for decades has been one of the most affluent communities for Black folks. It was because there was this man by the name of Marion Barry who ensured that at a time when contracts were going out, that Black people were at the table. And he made more millionaires. They've done like documentaries on it. They've done data on it. And that's why even now, that's critically important state by state by state that we see governors and state legislatures who are willing to do it. And I know that I'm turned it into a whole different topic. So let me get back on point and say, now that it's been my soapbox of the night, let me get back here and say, I really am amused by the GOP at this point. They don't stand for anything they ever stood for. And even when it comes to this, like when government spending has always been one of their things, they actually, with a straight face, are making these arguments when it was their last candidate nominee for president who won office and took us into like the height of despair financially as a country, not honoring our own debts. I think that they're in an identity crisis.
Yeah,
I think they're in an identity crisis.
To Monique's point, Gustavo, obviously presidents can't be tit for tat. This isn't high school. This isn't, school. But the Republican Party did not demand that Donald Trump cut spending in order to raise the debt limit. They allowed him to do so without these same conditions. So now a man named Joe Biden happens to be a Democrat, is in the office, and all of a sudden they are so concerned about this deficit and so concerned about our budget that they want these massive cuts. And a lot of the cuts are to things like parks and, national parks and libraries and other things that do benefit everyday people. But don't touch these big contractors. They're hands off this defense spending. So that's why I'm saying I don't know if Biden should go in with all of these concessions.
I mean, we can't go into default, though, but I will say this.
14th Amendment, Gustavo, 14th Amendment.
What are the presidents who have sent our country within our lifetime to the financial brink? Reagan put us in so much debt. W sent us into Iraq, the Iraq War. Trump, through his own, the pandemic, yes, but also just his own stupidity. Yet the Republicans, it is they are the party of hypocrisy. They are the party that all of a sudden, when it's the other guy, they say, no, we need to watch all of our pennies. Again, I'm all for fiscal prudency. I'm all for no waste in government spending. It's our taxpayer dollars, but let's go. If you're gonna cut, let's cut. Let's cut the billions of dollars into the battleships that aren't even going to be relevant in out on the seas. Like, we got to spend our money smarter. The Republicans are not spending money smarter. What I'm saying about Biden is that people are never happy. Biden. Every time I come on the show, I always talk about he's underrated. He gets a bad rap. I trust Joe will do the right thing, and I trust Joe will make the Republicans say, like, hey, look, I'll give you something, but you got to care about this country. And if you're gonna go scorched earth on my budget, then you better watch out. Dark Branton's gonna come out and lay waste to you.
So let's be clear and be on the record. We love Joe Biden on Areva Martin in real time. No doubt about it. We love the Biden-Harris administration, but we also believe in pushing Biden, and we know that it is because folks on the left whose politics are left of the president have caused him to move further to the left in ways that benefit everyday people. So I just think with these Republicans, Biden has to be tough. He has to show them you cannot be inconsistent. You can't be the hypocrites that you are, demand one thing out of the administration when I'm president, but yet give Donald Trump, a blank check to write as he will and not hold him accountable in the same way. And I don't want to see us, blinking. Well, we don't have to blink because there is something called the 14th Amendment. And one of my very esteemed law professors who's now retired from Harvard Law School, Lawrence Tribe, has laid out the perfect way in which the 14th Amendment can be invoked by the White House to get around this, what he calls basically artificial debt limit ceiling, and does not even require the Republicans. So obviously we want to govern in a way that, is representative of the people. But if the people's representatives, i.e. the Republicans, are unreasonable and are making these cuts that are going to do harm, or demanding these cuts that are going to do harm to the everyday people, then I think as Democrats, we just need to stand up and make sure that we are not giving away the store. And I agree, you're right. Biden has this way of evolving to positions that he's always, I think, looking out for everyday people. That's at the core of what he wants to do, is benefit everyday people in ways. So I have no doubt that whatever he does at the end, but I just hope that he holds his ground on this one, because the Republicans are complete hypocrites. They gave Trump free reign, and now they want to care about spending in ways they never cared about when he was in office. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about voting and the fact that voting may be easier in some states than we thought. And are Republicans starting to soften on gun control because these red states have seen this, as it's been called, this torrent of horrific mass shootings? When we come forward right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Than the sword.
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
Tell me I'm the boy that girl.
I'm young, gifted, and black.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Commission established. Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Your black. Your black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk.
All right, Gustavo, gun rights or gun control advocates, I should say, they say they're seeing this fade, if sometimes fleeting fissures in what has been the staunch Republican opposition to any kind of restrictions on firearms. And it's coming as a result of this gruesome torrent of mass killings that ironically have happened most recently in red states like Tennessee, Kentucky, and Texas. Do you think the news of these mass shootings and just how horrible they're being played out in the mainstream media might be what is needed to cause some of these Republicans to start rethinking, their staunch opposition to any kind of gun control legislation?
It's a ghoulish prospect that carnage, straight up carnage, is what finally makes Republicans realize, maybe AR-15 should not be so prominent and prevalent out into the community. Maybe there's a problem that there's hundreds of millions of guns out in the United States, and yet people are still going hungry. Maybe there's a problem with our culture that we have here. I'll believe it when I see it, though. I know at least, the conservative response to this now is saying like, well, okay, there's a mental health problem, which there is. There is absolutely a mental health problem, but just because there's a mental health problem doesn't mean if you solve that, then somehow the gun problem is supposed to be solved that way as well. So, or the carnage problem is supposed to happen. So my hope is that, sadly, that they come to Jesus on this and realize like we need more restrictions. We also need more resources allocated for mental health. And going back to the budget, you can't cut on those things. You cannot cut on those things and have a healthy society. And by the way, if you cut on parks help in mental health as well. Again, hypocrisy. Republicans and hypocrisy never ends. But I have faith in them that they will get right eventually.
Yeah, talking about faith and mental health and parks brings me back to Texas, Monique. So you're from Texas. Abbott was really one of the, very vocal voices saying he wanted to invest more in mental health because after the shootings, in Houston and Dallas, that this is a mental health crisis. But we also know, as we talked about, when it comes to budget cuts, there's definitely not a big fight on the part of most Republicans to restore or to ensure that there's money there for mental health facilities. We've seen across the country how many mental health facilities have been closed, overnight facilities, long-term care facilities that address mental health issues pretty much gone in most states. So I don't know, are we to trust them that they care at all about resolving or really improving the state of mental health in this country? Or is this just another way to kick the can down the road and not deal with the issue of guns and how easy it is to access guns in this country?
No, we are not to trust them on any of it. I do want to make the distinction, though, that when we say the Republicans, it's specifically the elected leadership Republicans. It's not the people, citizenry Republicans, because in this country, all of the data, all of the numbers show that this country, the people, the electorate wants these changes and would welcome this legislation. So the people that they are voting into office are not abiding by the desires of their electorate. Now, this is one of those things, which comes first, the chicken or the egg, because the next thing that has to happen is that these same Republican citizens are going to have to refuse to vote for or to put up a candidate who will actually get it done. And that may mean, you're not going to get everything. Your deal breaker issue, your one item issue can't be abortion and guns, can't be guns, and same-sex marriage, can't be same-sex marriage and whatever. So there are all of these platform issues that members of the GOP care about. And it isn't that they do not care about this one. It's that they're not willing to put their money where their mouth is and vote these folks out. So we're left with the conscience of the GOP, and the conscience of the GOP is in their pockets. Period.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that you say that, because I was thinking after Uvalde. I mean, I thought after, so many of these mass shootings that would be it, consistent with what you're saying. Like, we're no longer going to support lawmakers who don't want to or refuse to do anything about guns in our community. And yet we did not see this massive, rush to the polls after Uvalde to throw out of office these lawmakers, as you said, who are acting in the best interest of gun lobbyists and gun manufacturers, not the best interest of individuals who have experienced gun violence. And pretty much, if you live in this country, you've had gun violence touch your life in some kind of way, whether it's in your immediate family, your distant family or friends, or somebody knows someone who has suffered from gun violence. So Gustavo, where's the disconnect? So Monique says the stats say that most Americans want basic, common sense gun reform, whether it's universal background checks, whether it's AR-15 assault rifle bans, but yet these same people that answer, yes, we want that imposed, continue to vote for the same people who are refusing to do anything other than offer up thoughts and prayers and make a whole lot of noise about mental health, but do nothing about mental health either.
It's money. It's the money that goes to candidates who are already incumbents from the NRA and other like-minded organizations, and you do not have candidates who are brave enough on the Republican side to stand up and say, no, we need more gun controls. I am going against my party. It's, the Democratic Party were a fractious bunch, always fighting with each other, blah, 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 blah. The Republicans, they march in lockstep in a very scary way where you have to be completely 100% against abortion. Call it pro-life. You have to be 100% completely for guns, because if not, you get ridiculed as a liberal. The Democrats don't believe that you are actually a moderate Republican, because the party, the party leaders in the Republican Party are not that. So it's kind of like damned if you do, damned if you don't. But that's the perfect opportunity, especially in the more purple states, to have Republicans who rise up and say, look, I'm going to stand against my party. I might be a conservative in all these other ways, but when it comes to guns, we need common sense. And this is something that my party, or like if I was a Republican, that my party is not practicing. But you see me saying that's political suicide right there. And sadly, anyone who runs for office wants to be a politician for life.
Speaking of political suicide, Monique, Nikki Haley just said, I'm not going to tell you there's going to be a federal ban on abortion because we don't have the numbers. So it would take 60 votes in the Senate to get there, and we don't have 60 votes that would line up behind a federal ban on abortion. So she may have just committed what Gustavo called this political suicide, because, the staunch base of her party wants to hear whoever gets into office from the Republican Party is going to federally ban abortions. And Nikki's like, no, I'm not going to tell you that because that's a lie.
Yeah, and she's departing from her mentor, the person who brought her into the White House halls, because a lie wouldn't have stopped him. He would have just made the promise and kept it moving. And then when he can't get it done, blame the people who rightly deserve the blame for it, which would be not her, but the legislature. I would like to say that this is something good to see, that she's not completely detached from truth telling, not detached from facts and calling things like it is. But there have been so many other issues where she's just come out and said such hideous things that I don't know. And I don't think that that's her political suicide. I think that as long as Donald Trump is out of jail and actually physically can go back into office, then they're all just also rans.
So we're not giving Nikki a pass because she did stand up and say one honest thing. I agree with you. She's so troubled in so many other ways. Before we run out of time, Gustavo, I have to ask you about Dianne Feinstein. She returned to Washington, obviously her vote needed on these judicial appointments, on holding the Supreme Court accountable, but a lot of Californians are not happy. So why aren't we happy that we wanted her back to work? She goes back to work, and we're like, really don't want her back to work.
She's a lame duck. I mean, she already said she's not going to run anymore. She's already in there, when it comes to experience, and she's also sick. I mean, a 3-month battle with shingles. I've known people who've gotten shingles as adults. It is not a pretty disease, and it really hurts you. So people want her to recuperate, and also people want to move on. And look, I would love it if she does step down. Put Gavin to his test of putting a Black woman in that seat, whether it's Shirley Weber, whether it's Barbara Lee, someone, and then have them run in, next year's election. Let's move on with this future. And it's not like somehow Dianne stepping down would hurt California. No, it's still going to be a Democratic seat. Gavin's not going to get a Republican. So get that next blood in there, get that next generation, and whoever replaces Dianne's probably going to be to the left of her. So it's going to be even better for California.
Yeah, I don't think she's getting that memo, Gustavo. Lots of folks are saying it's time for Dianne to retire. You're 89. You've had a fantastic run at it. You've done great things for the state and for the country. Let the next generation lead. But
it's hurting her legacy by staying so long.
Hurting her legacy. She's killing her legacy, and we don't want to see that happen because she has done some great things for the state. All right, I'm out of time. Thank you so much, Gustavo Arellano, LA Times reporter. Make sure you follow him and read his column. Monique Pressley, legal commentator, host of the podcast Make It Make Sense with Monique Pressley. Make sure you check her out every day on Instagram. Always a pleasure to see both of you. Be well until next time. All right, after some news, it is hour 2, and we're talking to Danielle Monet Truitt. Stay tuned and stay with us right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Pick up the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4, only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up.